right, here we are. Keep me up. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is that you're picking up this show. We want you to know we do have the answer. I know there's a big problem, but every problem is hiding its solution. A little investigation on our part will demonstrate that the solution is right next to the problem. All we have to do is announce the problem. Our big problem is a card that we're not playing. Just because someone has named the game after themselves, they think they have dissolved the actual card that needs to be played. His name is Trump, but he is not the Trump card. You are the Trump card because you are still in play. He has an echo that is obviously pretty strong. I keep telling you guys that this man is extremely charismatic, extremely attractive to those folk who are not paying logical attention to what's going on. He has the look. He has the attitude. He has the backing of the devil, obviously. Certainly not the backing of God, otherwise the Pope wouldn't be on his rump so tough. But it's more important what you're doing than it is what he's doing. Are you paying attention to the power that you really represent? That's the question. And that is also the answer. Because the power you represent is the power that allowed him to... See, because we relaxed. Yeah, we relaxed. We laughed. We thought it was a joke. We didn't believe a word he said. But folks, remember back in January, I said then that this man is not someone who is anticipating a fair election in the future. This is a man who's going to do everything he can to stop the election, let alone the counting of votes. Well, Wallace, how's that going to happen? We have a governor in Louisiana who just set the template. He's in the middle of an election. Received a Supreme Court decision that, to him, created an emergency. To him. Created an emergency. To him. Created an emergency that is trying to create an emergency for both of us, emergency for us as well. He stopped the election, says, oh no, we can't have an election here now, not now, no. Here's an opportunity for white supremacy to step to the top. Well, we know the solution for that. The solution for that is for us to step up, make our voices heard, and understand that our money is our money, our votes are our votes, and what we decide to do with them may have much to do with what happens to this country. If we decide who we want to spend our money with, if we decide how we're going to vote, if we decide that we're not going to let any new rules outrun our ability to fit those rules, we're going to do all right. But you know how crazy I can get sometimes, so I wanted to speak to someone who's got a much more level look at what's going on, someone who is not considered old and radical. He may be considered young and radical. I don't know, after you talk to him, after you hear him. I have a young man, Mr. Rick Callender. He is the California State President of the NAACP, the state organization. He is responsible for, I'm not sure how many chapters here in the state of California, but when he speaks, he has to be careful that he is speaking for a large organization. Unlike Wallace, who just runs his mouth because his mother told him he was smart, got a few good grades in school, managed to reach a age of senior titling as a black man, so he lived through a lot, and not been scared at any date of his life to step up. And so Mr. Rick Callender has some answers for us, I'm sure. Rick, how are you this morning?
Good morning. I am doing well. Thank you for having me.
Well, Rick, I understand not only are you doing well, that the work that you're doing is changing people's lives, and so you're doing good as we approach this potential crisis. And as we say these are crises, I want to remind people that everything is a crisis until we put our backs into it and lean into it with the attitude of Muhammad Ali that we are not going to lose. Rick, we had this decision by the Supreme Court that affected our ability to vote and affected the ability of the desires of those folks who don't want us to vote to feel that they could do things to stop us from voting. Can you talk to us a little bit about the Supreme Court decision? And
Absolutely, absolutely. And let me be very clear. The NACP, as well as the California Wedding State Conference, the NACP, we strongly oppose the Supreme Court decision because it weakens one of the most important protections in the Voting Rights Act. The ability to stop maps and election practices that dilute black voting power. And we know what they're doing with this. We know how they're doing it. And it's not just a Louisiana issue. And it's not just a redistricting issue, but this is an issue about democracy. When the courts make it harder to prove that black voters are being packed or cracked or silenced, all it does is it gives a roadmap to weaken representation across the country. We saw what happened in Texas. We know what's coming in Louisiana, and the Supreme Court 6-3 ruling, basically holding that the Voting Rights Act did not require Louisiana to create an additional majority minority district, and therefore Louisiana's use of race and redrawing the district was unconstitutional. We know what they're doing. They're just trying to take away our votes. They're going to split us up into other districts where we're not the majority, so we're going to lose black and brown representation. We're going to lose minority representation everywhere, and we've got to and we will fight back by voting.
as we fight back with our vote, we also need to understand that we did not win the civil rights movement battle
Hmm.
just being black folk. That there were then and there are now white people who have a sense of fairness, a sense of understanding that America's greatness is not decided by one group of people, but decided by the diverse contributions made by a diverse group of folk. So there's a certain amount of coalitioning that we need to do. Do you agree with that?
100%. We've got to work together. This is not just going to be a black issue. If you look at California, if you look at many states, you have Latino districts, you have brown districts, you have Asian districts. They're going to split the districts up and they're going to dilute the representation. So this is why we oppose this decision. It simply takes us backward. When we were able to fight for the Civil Rights Act and had it amended again in 1982 to focus on discriminatory results, not just discriminatory intent. What we know they're going to do is they're going to split us up, and it's going to be a wink, wink, and what they're going to say is, no, no, we're not doing that. We're just doing this based off of partisanship.
That is indeed the problem. But as we look for a solution here, the coalition. This is something that black people, brown people, Asian people, as a minority group, have been eating the apple of division because being white in America seems to be a solution to most problems, until this truth of the Trump lie has been brought about. The truth of the Trump lie is that poor white people, most white people, are not benefiting from the Trumpisms that are out here. He's lied to them about. He's lied to them about the same thing he's lied to everybody else about. He and his family and friends are the only ones who are really benefiting. It's like he says, well, when the prices of oil goes up, we make money. Well, the we that he's talking about is not the same we that you and I are talking about as we talk about the basic American person, American citizen, a resident, who has to deal with the affordability and who also has to deal with the imagery that he is creating about Americans all around the planet. I remember reading about the ugly American back in 1952 as the book was written. And we had a problem then, and now I think he has surpassed even the worst of the imagery that may have been available or projected about America early on. So, solution wise, how do you see the coalition taking place, or do you see a coalition, or what do you suggest as the solutions for us to move toward in working against this attack on our voting rights?
Well, in California, we're seeing a multi-framed attack. Not only are we seeing the attack that's coming out of the Supreme Court, but we're also seeing the attack on voter IDs. So they're attacking us to keep us from voting, and then they're going to try to break up our districts as well. So one of the things, and this is not just a plug for the NACP, but one of the things I tell folks to do is join your local branch of the NACP. We've won so many of these fights before. We've seen this before. We've been here before. We know how to fight this. So one, join your local branch, because what we're going to have to do is you're going to get these hearings locally. You got to attend these hearings. You've got to testify. You've got to be able to build a public record. So when voting rights are threatened, we have a record and a basis to sue on. Because what they're going to be saying right now is, oh no, this is partisan. And if we're out there when we're creating the record and talking about black votes, brown votes, Asian votes are being split or being broken apart, this is how we've got to make sure we're creating the record. So the coalition, we've got to get together and make sure that we're doing this. One of the things that the NAACP is going to be doing at a national level is we're going to be having mobilization efforts. If you look, there's going to be a lot of different primaries that are occurring in June. We've got to make sure that we show up, we show out, we vote out, and we vote in the folks that we know are going to be good for us. And so the NACP, we're going to be leading a national mobilization effort. So if you text volunteer to 20707, you can join the NAACP's national mobilization effort, and we're going to make sure that we're targeting folks. Some of the things we've got to do is make sure that we're working to oppose, like I said, the voter restrictions and what's going on. And people are going to say that this is just about politics. This is not about politics. When black voters are targeted, when majority black districts are dismantled, when students and seniors face unnecessary barriers to voting, and when eligible citizens are pushed out of the process, that's just simply voter suppression. So we've got to get together, we've got to hold hands, we've got to walk hand in hand, and we've got to fight this together. And the only way we can do this is if we fight together, we mobilize together, and we show up and we vote.
You're suggesting that we join our local chapters and that we volunteer. In other words, that we get involved and not simply wait for the ballot to come and hope that our markings on it are counted.
Exactly. We've got to prepare. You've got to prepare for the midterm elections. We've got to make sure, when I'm talking about the voter mobilization effort, if you text volunteer to 20707, that's about joining the NAACP's mobilization efforts. But we've got to prepare for these midterm elections with direct voter contact. We've got to be out there in the streets knocking on doors. We've got to be phone banking, texting, sending postcards, holding town halls, and we need community education. Folks need to understand what's going on. Because if people are better educated about what's happening, and they probably look at the Supreme Court decision and say, well, how does this affect me? It 100% affects you. You will not see faces that look like you in the halls of Congress. You will not see faces that look like you in the state houses. You will not see faces that look like you in a lot of different capacities. We've got to make sure we have faces that look like me and that look like you in the halls of Congress.
Okay, so give me that text number again.
The text number is, you text volunteer, VOLUNTEER, to 20707. We will sign you up for the NAACP mobilization efforts. We'll make sure that you're talking to people, talking to your neighbors, literally talking to people within 5 miles of your house to make sure that you're pulling them out. We're going to be doing everything that we can, including highlighting who our members are that are on the ballot, our lifetime members that are on the ballot, so people can understand who stand with the NAACP, and who people can understand who do not stand with the NAACP when you go to vote. We are nonpartisan, but we're not stupid.
Nonpartisan, but not stupid. Okay, so that volunteer The word volunteer, text it to 20707,
That's correct.
and that will put you in touch with the system that will allow you to be included into the volunteers set up by the NAACP.
Exactly.
Okay, so once again, we cannot do this alone as black folk. We did not win the civil rights movement as black folk alone. And that means we have had to create coalitions with everyone else that's out there. And we are not just talking about the politics of race, we're talking about the politics of democracy. We're talking about the idea that the people who are beneath a certain level of income, who we know are in need of health care, who we know are in need of food, who we know are in need of shelter, who we know are in general need, that number of folks has grown and is growing because of the economic situation caused by Mr. Trump's decision to have a war against Iran and the people of the United States and the rest of the planet. With that, any suggestions on how we create our coalitions, how we decide what do we do to demonstrate that we're not picking and choosing the doors that we knock on? And sometimes we need to knock on the doors of the folks that we think would be opposed to what we're standing for.
That's a very good point. We're going to be knocking on everybody's doors. I think, as you've pointed out, when this administration came into office, they said you're going to pay less for fuel. They said you're going to pay less for food. They say that, everybody's going to, be more affluent. Well, let me ask everybody this. Is that the case right now? Everybody can see what's going on. I sit here and I just filled up my tank of gas with over $6 a gallon. Let me be clear. The changes that you saw from the Supreme Court, the decisions that you've seen to try to put this voter ID on the ballot for California, this decision, it's not just about one state. It's not just about one map. It's not just about one election. This is really about black voters and other historically excluded communities. Will they have a fair opportunity to be heard, to be counted, and to be represented? So when we talk about creating coalitions, the NAACP, we have always won by being part of a coalition. And this is a coalition of people that believe in democracy. This is a coalition of people that believe in being, standing up for the truth and making sure that we're represented. And so we fought for generations to protect the ballot because the right to vote is the foundation for every other civil rights. And so when courts make it harder to challenge discriminatory maps behind voting laws, all they're doing is giving the politicians permission to silence communities while they're hiding behind, technical legal arguments. And like I said, we've seen this before and we've been here before. This is nothing more than voter suppression. And voter suppression today, if you think about the Jim Crow laws, it does not look like what the voter suppression looked like of past. But today,
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about this voter ID proposition that they've got in front of us. This is Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen. We're speaking to Mr. Rick Callender, the president of the state NAACP here in the state of California. We'll be back right after this short break.
In San Bernardino County, black babies are almost 3 times more likely to die before their first birthday than white babies. From 2018 to 2023, the number of babies born too early went up by more than 10%. Black mothers also have a higher chance of feeling sad or depressed during pregnancy, which can affect both mom and baby. But there is hope, and people are taking action. That's where FEMUR, the Fetal Infant Mortality Review, comes in. FEMUR is a local group of doctors, nurses, community leaders, and neighbors. They work together to learn why some babies die and how to stop it from happening. They look at real cases, mom and baby's information is kept private, and share ideas to help make care better for families. Together, we can build healthy beginnings for black families. For more information, visit dph.spcounty.gov/MCAH or email askmcah@spcounty.gov.
Publish your legal notice in West Side Story newspaper. For the best service and the best rates, call 909-384-8131. Publishing legal notices in the city and county of San Bernardino since 1990. West Side Story provides friendly expert service. Call 909-384-8131 to benefit from budget-friendly rates. Whether a fictitious business name, a name change, a divorce summons, or any other legal or public notice, call West Side Story Newspaper 909-384-8131. 909-384-8131. That's 909-384-8131.
All right, we're back. This is Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen, your host. Today we're speaking to Mr. Rick Callender, the president of the California NAACP. Here in California, if you go back, you realize that the state of California actually used to be part of Mexico. We had a big treaty, the San Hidalgo Treaty, that at some point promised that this would always be a state open to people from Mexico. There really wouldn't be a border, that there would always be a two-language situation, and somehow that old reputation about a fork-tongue treaty jumped up again. And to justify the treatment of people who were not white, the same old trick that was used to dehumanize African Americans when we were brought over as slaves, the same dehumanizing statements made about Irish people when they were brought to America and forced to become soldiers in the Civil War. The same type of dehumanization that took place when we decided that though the Chinese people were good enough to help build the railroads, they were not good enough to have their families populate here, and so there were no women allowed, Chinese women allowed to be here. Our racism, the dehumanization of people to justify the desire for white people to be in charge is kind of troubling, not just to non-white people, but to white people of conscience, white people who have a desire to not be looked at as folks who are selfish and wanting to be in charge of everybody else's life. Well, that attitude of supremacy has made it such that, well, we can't trust who's here in America, despite the fact we've got Border Patrol, county police, state police, local police, and, there are places where folks that do illegal things tend to maybe have a little bit more of a obvious profile. But in general, America is pretty doggone safe. And people who are not... Listen, my phone knows who I am and talks about what I'm thinking about before I talk about it. So the idea everybody who wants to go to vote has brass elbows and they're willing to go through anything to pretend that they're eligible, and to the extent that we need to double check their ID, be sure that they've got a voting card. Rick, so what's up with this voter ID thing? A lot of people are saying, well, yeah, it's a good thing to be sure that we don't have any pretended citizens voting, and sure, it's okay to have voter ID. Why is it, Rick, that we don't need to go into the voter ID? Why is it that we should be able to trust that people who receive their ballot in the mail are legitimate voters? What's up with that?
The one thing, and I'm sure this is on everybody's mind, on all your listeners' minds, and saying, everybody has a California Real ID, or, has a Real ID throughout the nation. Well, remember this. The Real ID does not state that you're a citizen. What the Real ID says is that you are who you are. That's it. So in order to vote, and what they're trying to push is they're trying to push that you'd have to prove that you are a citizen. They're trying to push that you have to find a passport. They're trying to push to say that you have to be able to have your not only a social security card, but you have to be able to locate. I'm going to tell you, I haven't seen my social security card since probably in the 80s. This is real. Do you know where your social security card is? And so what we're seeing, this is just voter suppression, as I was saying before. Today, what voter suppression shows up as is strict voter ID laws. It shows up shortened early voting periods, moving polling paces away from campuses and communities, attacks on student voters, purges of voter rolls, restrictions of vote by mail. And I want this to be clear. The NACP, we do not oppose secure elections. We oppose using election integrity as an excuse to make voting harder for eligible citizens. Strict voter ID laws, all they do is burden seniors, students, low-income voters, people with disabilities, and communities of color. And the truth is clear, there's been no evidence, none, of widespread voter fraud that justifies, putting unnecessary barriers between eligible voters and the ballot box. And so, we all know this. Our democracy is absolutely the strongest when more people participate and not fewer. So, the right to vote is non-negotiable for the NACP. This is not going to look good on the ballot. It's not going, and I'm hoping voters can see through this mess, because once they're educated, I believe they're going to vote the right way.
And I agree. There's the old story about if you were in the South and you wanted to vote, you had to know how many jelly beans were in the jar.
Yeah.
Well, if I've got to know to vote how many jelly beans in the jar, then the voter registrar needs to know how many jelly beans are in the jar. And the white people who voted in front of me should know how many jelly beans are in the jar.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so if jelly beans in the jar is the standard, then I can live with that if everybody else is going to have to live with that. But the difference is that the standard is different for people of color. So if everybody had to count jelly beans, that'd be fine. If everybody's got to show up with a birth certificate, that'd be one thing. But that's not what they're asking. There are pretty much going to be places where everybody doesn't have to worry about their minority people showing up. They're not going to ask for your ID. They just want to be sure that you are white and that you're living in a neighborhood that they've built a little circle around in that precinct. And if that's the case, you're a Republican and you can vote for free. My concern is that, okay, so they set up these little rules. They say you got to have your Social Security card or your birth certificate. Rick, should we not be prepared to help people who are stuck with that to be able to find their birth certificate? Should we not be preparing to help people qualify for these unqualified qualifications that are about to be possibly put in front of us to vote? Is that part of our? I mean, we don't want it to occur. But if voter ID, if some type of ID is required to vote, then we need to be prepared that everybody that we want to have vote have that ID. Do you agree, or should we fight that?
We absolutely should fight this. The laws are already in place. If you sign up to vote and you're not a citizen of this country, you will be prosecuted. You'll be thrown in jail. The laws are already in place. What they're trying to do is make voting harder. They're trying to make it seem like voting is a privilege. It's not something that courts, legislatures, or politicians get to ration out based on race, age, zip code, income, disability, or even access to some kind of government-issued ID. Having to find your birth certificate, and most people, if you've never left this country, if you cannot afford to leave this
Rick,
country.
I know you've got to leave shortly, so let me put this on the table.
Yeah.
If everybody that we were dealing with were going to restrict their actions inside of the parameters of the law, we would be okay. But as we see with the governor's declaration of an emergency in Louisiana, when there's not an emergency, sets the template so that, once again, not that they're right, but they are able to set the confusion in. So if they're able to do this in a primary election in Louisiana, I know that there is an orange-colored haired man in D.C. that says, this is pretty good. I'm not really concerned about who wins any of these elections. I'm concerned about staying president and setting an atmosphere where people have to do what I damn well tell them to do. So if he's able to stand up in November and say, we've got to hold it, stop, this election cannot take place, this is an emergency situation, Wallace Allen's toenail is not correct, it's ugly, and we're not going to let him vote in anybody that looks like him. Whatever the emergency circumstance that he wants to call. He can call it. People will still vote, but he's got the army, and he'll say the vote wasn't real. And that level of confusion and his state of emergency and arguing and fighting about that gives him much more standing than it gives us, because he has the army. He has the Supreme Court judges. He has the Attorney General that has the ability to decide whether, you can get a court date or not. We have right on our side, but are we going to go to civil war over something like that? I think we should, if that's the case. But I think we should approach November with the idea that there's just a really good chance that November 3rd will not just be the election day, but will become the state of emergency day. I know that's not what we want to look forward to, but how can we look past it? Rick, what do you think?
Well, the Civil War is at the ballot box. We've got to show up at the ballot box not only in November, but in June. We've got to send a message.
I'm understanding that, and I'm agreeing with you, but Rick, we all go to the ballot box. We've got a person that will stand there and say the election is fraudulent, it didn't work, and we're not going to count it. And we know that he'll say it. We know that he's willing to do it. He's been doing it for 8 years now.
Indeed, I agree with you. But like I said, our fight right now is making sure we get as many black and brown folks showing up. We've got to change. We've got to overturn what we're seeing going on in Congress. We've got to overturn what we see going on in the Senate. And then we've got to show up in 2 years from now and make sure that we have a president that supports democracy and does not support exactly what you're saying. And I think what you're talking about is the reality of what we're seeing come out this White House. And if people are not scared, if they enjoy what they're seeing happen day to day, then they won't show up and vote. But if you're scared, if you know that things are not the way they should be, then we need to change direction, we need to change course, and we need to fight back. And like I said, the Civil War is at the ballot box. That's really what we need to do.
I think you're absolutely right, and I hope that we're able to convince and facilitate that attitude to get everybody to get out here and really vote, to get involved and to volunteer, to actually go and meet their next door neighbor. I suppose that would be one of the first steps that we could invite people to do. Rick, we want to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll give you a chance to finalize, because I know you got to go.
All right,
I really appreciate that you've been here to help educate us this morning. This is Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen. We're speaking with Mr. Rick Callender, the president of the California NAACP. We'll be right back after this short break.
In San Bernardino County, black babies are almost 3 times more likely to die before their first birthday than white babies. From 2018 to 2023, the number of babies born too early went up by more than 10%. Black mothers also have a higher chance of feeling sad or depressed during pregnancy, which can affect both mom and baby. But there is hope, and people are taking action. That's where FEMUR, the Fetal Infant Mortality Review, comes in. FEMUR is a local group of doctors, nurses, community leaders, and neighbors. They work together to learn why some babies die and how to stop it from happening. They look at real cases, mom and baby's information is kept private, and share ideas to help make care better for families. Together, we can build healthy beginnings for black families. For more information, visit dph.spcounty.gov/MCAH or email askmcah@spcounty.gov.
Publish your legal notice in West Side Story newspaper. For the best service and the best rates, call 909-384-8131. Publishing legal notices in the city and county of San Bernardino since 1990. West Side Story provides friendly expert service. Call 909-384-8131 to benefit from budget-friendly rates. Whether a fictitious business name, a name change, a divorce summons, or any other legal or public notice, call West Side Story newspaper 909-384-8131. 909-384-8131. That's 909-384-8131.
All right, this is Empire Talks Back, speaking with Mr. Rick Callender, the president of the NAACP statewide in California. Rick, Thank you so much for joining us this morning and giving us your insight on our issues. Would you like to close out? I know you got to go.
Absolutely. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. And let me make sure this is clear. We've fought too long, we've sacrificed too much, and we've come too far to turn back now. So we're going to have to make sure that we drive as many black and brown voters and all communities of color to the poll in both June and November. And we have no choice to show up and show up in mass. And as I said before, what I want everybody to do is text volunteer to 20707 to join the NAACP mobilization efforts. We've got to fight this, and we've got to fight this together. And if we fight back to the ballot box, we will be successful. Thank you for having me today.
My pleasure. You have a great day and continue your mission and your quest. I think we'll all benefit from that. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Don.
All right, that was Mr. Rick Callender, the California NAACP president. Dynamic young man. He's on the move. And once again, he's asking us to text the word volunteer to the 20707. That'll put you into the mix to become a official volunteer with the NAACP. I can say how you can be an unofficial volunteer with the Let's Make the World a Better Place group by Wallace Allen. And it's simple, man. You need to smile. You need to be able to have something good to say to everyone that you meet. And you need to understand that having something good to say shouldn't be made up, goofy, woofy stuff. It should be real. It should be real. It should be something that talks about your effort, your willingness to make the world a better place, your willingness to share, your willingness to care. That's all proven by what we do, not so much by what we say. So let's deal with this. If you know your next door neighbor, your across the street neighbor, go do something to let them know that you are part of their survival tool. If there's something wrong or they need something, that they could depend on you to be a little helpful. You don't have to, go cook for them every day. You don't have to go clean up their yard and stuff like that. But you are paying attention. If you see something, say something. If you see something that's out of line, say something and let them know you'd appreciate the same on their part. Share some fruit from your trees and vice versa. Make them a pie, make them a cake. Do something to support them first and see how they respond. But that's what we need to do, people. We need to understand that every day, everything we do is a vote. Are we voting to support people who are doing things to help and share, or are we selecting people because they're selfish and because they seem to have a shiny light around them that is artificial? Are they a movie star or are they a community star? Are they a star because they look good, or are they a star because they do good things? We're having elections all over the city, all over the country, all over the state right now. Every day you decide whether you want to support one grocery store or another. You decide whether you want to support your ethnic business or another. You need to remember that there's some businesses that are supporting you, and there's some businesses that don't really give a rat's tail whether you live or die. So we need to figure those things out, and maybe, Wallace, we should help on our end and bring in some news about what some of these corporations are doing, who they're supporting. Right now, we've got a big argument between two of the richest people on the planet as to what should happen with artificial intelligence. Well, most of us, we're sitting here trying to just figure out, how we can use it to help get better directions. Well, there's people out there who are trying to get it to the point of how it can reflect how much of your mind it can read for the future based on how much of your mind it can calculate from what you've done in the past. Some of those things are important. We've got an election that does not speak to the pain that we're putting our planet through, and that the planet is God's representative, and if we don't treat the planet right, the planet will spit us out, evict us, and allow the conditions for life to expire. It can become toxic. It has been toxic in the past. It can become toxic now. I could say, look at what's going on with our oceans, but most of you don't really believe it or care, but it's full of plastic. It's full of toxins. The water is changing. The level of the water is changing. The ice caps are melting. There are things that are taking place within the atmosphere of our planet Earth that we are causing because of our overstimulation of desire to be happy, without any regard to the consequences of the things that we do. Too much carbon dioxide is not a good thing for the planet. And so we need to be planting enough trees and doing enough things to eat that stuff that we're creating that's not good for us. Anyway, there is a way, and it has to do with paying attention to something other than yourself. It has to do with realizing that it's time to do something for your brother other than loving him for what he can do for you. We have to stretch out. So I was at the debate or a hearing or an opportunity to hear the candidates for the city of San Bernardino's mayoral race. I think you folks have got a good decision to make. You've got some people there that have been at it a while, and you've got some people who've been at other aspects of life for a while and are wanting to bring their talent to the political arena. Well, I think that when you decide to vote for someone, you should have an idea of what you want that person to do. If you're in the city of San Bernardino, well, you want to know what they're going to do with that airport. You've got an international airport. It's not just the airport. It is the San Bernardino International Airport. Do you know how many airports are international airports? Not a lot. That means international. That means we have the ability to do flights from here to anywhere on the planet. Now, how do we decide to do that? We can't just say, well, let me call the airport and get them to bring me an airline that'll fly me. No, we've got to come up with some type of long-term plan that's going to allow us to take advantage of the beauty of the valley we live in and the location that we're operating from. I don't see why we're not having flights back and forth to Mexico City or to somewhere in Mexico. We certainly need to be having regular flights to Las Vegas. It doesn't make sense not to. Should have some good flights to San Francisco. We do have an airline there, Breeze Airlines. And they have to operate the way they're operating. And right now it seems like they're able to take you to San Francisco for a pretty low price. The only issue with that for me is that they seem to require you to stay there a couple of days before they can bring you back. But they're setting a template. They're setting an opportunity. They're showing us that San Bernardino International Airport, not only is it a destination potential, it is a place for you to take off to any place on the planet that you want to. But we have to make it happen. And anybody that's running for mayor should have a plan that's going to activate, increase the jobs, increase the attention at that airport. Well, maybe we need to increase the attention here in San Bernardino. We've got Route 66. This is Route 66 Centennial. Route 66 is that highway that goes from Chicago to LA, 2,500 miles. This is the highway that the Grapes of Wrath, that book speaks about. That book speaks about, people moving along that Route 66, getting away from the Dust Bowl of Oklahoma, moving to the promises of California. Beautiful story, hardcore story. real story about Route 66. Route 66 is a family reunion everywhere that you stop and meet, and it comes right through the Inland Empire. Man, that Route 66 from Devore, coming down Cajon Boulevard to Mount Vernon Avenue, down to 5th Street to Foothill Boulevard, headed west. That's legendary. The things that used to take place on Mount Vernon Avenue in terms of the music, Anthony Garcia could talk to us about the music that was represented on Mount Vernon Avenue. What I think he tells me about the burrito circuit. This is where the Latin musicians were playing. We certainly had the Chitlin circuit. This is where the black musicians were playing. I don't know if many of you remember at all of the Sammy Davis Jr. story. Sammy Davis Jr., you remember who he is, I think. One of the Rat Pack, Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra. I can't remember all of those names, but Sammy was on his way to Vegas, and he was at a stop sign on Kendall, on Route 66, Cajon Boulevard, and Kendall. There's a corner there, the stop sign, and he got hit by a truck or a car or something. But there was a terrible accident. Sammy Davis Jr. lost his eye right there on Route 66 and Kendall. He was taken to a little clinic. We know that clinic area now is Community Hospital. They took good care of Sammy. Sammy remembered that. Sometime afterwards, 6 months, I'm not sure the length of time after the accident, but Sammy Davis Jr. and Frank Sinatra and the whole Rat Pack crew came back to San Bernardino and put on a benefit concert right there at the Orange Show to raise money for what is now the Community Hospital. We've got history. We've got wonderful things here. You got voted one of the best casinos either here in Vegas or it's California, Yamava. Put together and as a result of mistreatment to our Serrano band of Mission Indians. They built a casino, started with bingo, stretched it out, built a casino, a marvelous hotel, and now they've got Yamava and a Palms Hotel in Vegas. Tell me about going to Vegas from San Bernardino, using that airport. Man, we need to be talking to Yamava, our Serrano band of Indians, to maybe understand that, so you guys got the two casinos. Maybe we need to be putting together that airplane ride, huh? I don't know. I'm talking about it. Maybe I should be talking to them about it. But if you know them better than I do, maybe you should go talk to them about it. Point is, it's an opportunity. We shouldn't be missing that. If I'm running for mayor, I'm trying to go talk to them about it. I'll tell you that. Now, and we've got Southern California attractions right here that people are traveling coming all over the world for. People are still coming by Route 66 to see the Wigwam. We've got the Wigwam Motel right there on Foothill Boulevard. They still come in and stop to go eat at Meatla's restaurant on the corner of Mount Vernon. What is that, 6th Street, 7th Street?
6th and Mount Vernon.
6th and Mount Vernon. We have things that people from all over the world are looking at that we are so used to that we don't pay any attention to. We've got world-class freeways. Our freeway systems we have the 210, the 215, the 10, and we're close to the 60. We're close to, how many million people drive through here a month? All we need to do is figure out a reason for them to come by, stop by, hang out, and realize that this isn't just a beautiful place to drive through, it's a beautiful place to stop and live in. Home. Well, we don't have as many homeless people as we used to have. I don't know if that's because we are making it easier for them to have a place to live or if we're chasing them away. I think we should be trying to accommodate everybody who wants to live in this beautiful valley. So, once again, we are being asked to elect and select people who will be our leadership. We want them to lead them into places that we want to go. So you need to figure out where you want to go. What is it that you want? Are the street lights bright enough for you? Are your streets paved enough for you? Are you getting your trash picked up at the rate and level that you would like? Is there trash being left in empty lots around your house, around your property? Is there blight that you're not helping to volunteer to take care of? Man, there's a lot that we can be doing to make life better as we wait for our leaders to step forward. But once again, know where you want to go so when the leader shows up, much like the Lyft guy or the taxi guy, he wants to know, where can I take you? And that's what an elected official should be asking you. Where can I take you? So that when he tells you where he's going, it fits your plan, fits our plan. So I'm not sure how much time we have left as a group of people to make the decisions to make our planet right. But I know that if we don't make our backyard right, if we don't make our front yard right, if we don't make it reflective of what we really want, all we're going to end up doing is blaming somebody else for stuff that we could have taken care of. And so we have that ability. Right now, we have that ability. You have your ballots. They've come in the mail. You need to vote early. Don't sit around and figure, well, I can put my ballot in the mail the day or two before election day. No. You need to put that puppy in there early enough so that if they decide, they being the Trumpite who doesn't want you to vote, they decide to call a brand new public holiday for the post office so nobody works for 4 days before the election. Wallace, they wouldn't do that. Of course they wouldn't, unless they just figure that you aren't paying enough attention to give a damn. And I think some of the things that we see them trying to do demonstrates that they think you're not paying attention and don't give a damn. Well, Wallace, like what? Well, let's say a war in Iran. Did you know they were going to do that? Did he ask you? Did he go to your elected officials and say, hey, we want to go and attack Iran and kind of straighten them out about this bomb thing and their nuclear weapons? You know, we've been concerned about it a while. Give me your congressional permission to go out and do something about it. That would be the way we would do things. But no. He just says, hey, today is Thursday. I think I want to have a war in Iran. Let's do. Oh, and my good buddy in Israel says he's going to bomb them. Well, let's make a party. Let's go do this. Sorry, folks, that's not the way I would as a person who's got a vote. I mean, it's only one, but mine and yours, they add up quite a bit. I don't know if you are okay with that. That's great. I'm not. But somebody has to say it's okay other than him. So I use that as a point to say that, yeah, the guy will do that. He'll do almost anything he wants to. So I appreciate that you've been with us for today's program. I want to thank Mr. Rick Callender. I think he did a good job in informing us of how important it is for us to be registered to vote, to be attentive to our neighbors and their right to vote, and for us to create that coalition of love and action amongst our friends and neighbors that we don't know. We will share the results of anything that happens at our ballot box. And to remind you, text the word volunteer, VOLUNTEER, to 2707. Become a volunteer to help us be sure that our elections are fair. This is Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen. I want to thank Mr. Rick Callender. I want to thank the Mood Master. I want to thank Mike, who's done a great job there in the engineering booth. And we'll see you guys next week under two circumstances. One, if the good Lord's willing. Two, if the creek don't rise. God bless you. Thank you for your time. We'll see you then.